Good morning. I want to thank all the elected officials and Cook County leaders who are here today. Commissioner Brandon Johnson, our host here in Columbus Park. I caution you, you now have to applaud for everybody. Commissioner Frank Aguilar. Come on. Commissioner Alma Anaya. Commissioner Dennis Deere, who's right down here in front. And Commissioner Bridget Degnen. All right, we also have with us who's not an elected official, but Director of our Justice Advisory Council, Avik. All right. I want to acknowledge the over 75 representatives here today from the newly awarded service provider organizations and thank the individuals who will share their perspectives. Kiwana Bell and Shwanik Cross. Kiwana is the Chief Development Officer at the Westside Health Authority, and Shwanik is a program participant from Covenant House. Today represents a real milestone in Cook County's history. Today we're here to formally announce an historic $75 million. $75 million. In gun violence prevention and reduction grants awarded to an exceptional cohort of community-based organizations. These grants represent an unprecedented investment in gun violence prevention and offer additional hope for community recovery from the pandemic. COVID-19 surely disrupted our lives, but it's been catastrophic for our most vulnerable communities. Challenges that were already present due to racism and historic disinvestment were amplified. There was increased economic hardship. Schools were closed. Services and networks of social support that people had relied on were disrupted. Gun violence has been a persistent problem, but before 2020, shootings were on a steady downward trajectory. Hard to remember that in this moment, but true. Then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, gun violence spiked nationwide, and Cook County was no exception. Nationally, gun homicides have increased 35%, a little more than a third. And now gun violence, and this is astonishing, gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and young people under the age of 19. The leading cause of death. Last year in Cook County, there were over 1,000 gun-related homicides. Needless to say, the pain and damage caused by this loss of life and the traumas of gun violence ripple across communities. This collective trauma only adds to the challenges faced by communities impacted by racism and historic disinvestment. In 2021, President Biden announced the American Rescue Plan Act, a federal COVID-19 relief initiative. Cook County undertook a strategic planning process involving input from community leaders and residents to identify priorities for this once-in-a-generation funding opportunity. Addressing gun violence and increasing safety and resiliency in our communities was a top priority for leaders and residents. And by the way, there are copies in the table in the back of our priority plan for American Rescue Plan dollars, if you're at all interested. The broader initiatives beyond gun violence are included in that document. To lead our efforts, however, relating to gun violence, the county brought together an intergovernmental working group on violence prevention. Led by my Chief of Staff, Lynetta Haynes-Turner, to whom I'm deeply indebted, we continue to meet regularly with partners at the city and the state of Illinois, leaders of nonprofits, and gun violence prevention advocates to move this initiative forward and maximize the impact of funding across different units of government. After hearing from our communities and seeing the trauma on the ground, our Justice Advisory Council began planning for the Cook County Gun Violence Prevention and Reduction Grant Initiative. This grant program builds upon the Justice Advisory Council's ongoing work, investing in violence prevention, services for returning residents, and other areas that increase community safety and help prevent involvement in the criminal justice system. This grant initiative embraces creative, holistic, and community-driven approaches to violence prevention work. Those working at the community level are best poised to offer the support our at-risk neighbors need to avoid becoming involved in gun violence. We're dedicated to supporting this work and these community-driven approaches. Leveraging funding from the American Rescue Plan, we've allocated more funding than ever before to this critical work, starting with this $75 million investment in violence prevention services. Other American Rescue Plan investments, such as our Cook County Guaranteed Income Pilot and our initiative to abolish medical debt for low-income residents, will provide financial relief and stability for individuals, families, and communities. These initiatives complement our investment in gun violence prevention to address the root causes of crime and violence in our communities. The gun violence epidemic continues to impact many parts of Cook County. There's much work to be done, and violence prevention takes resources, effort, and expertise. I want to take a moment to address the question, what exactly is violence prevention? We often discuss vital evidence-based strategies such as street outreach, behavioral health services, employment support, and culturally responsive youth programs. Yes, violence prevention encompasses all of these essential strategies, but at its core, violence prevention is about facilitating healing, building peace, and providing support and resources for our historically underserved residents and the communities that they live in. Academic studies on violence prevention programs by the University of Chicago and Northwestern show what you intuitively know. Preventing gun violence is possible with resources and holistic support. The organizations and representatives here with us today understand this. You also understand the needs of vulnerable residents in our communities. You see the impact of outreach, authentic connection, and holistic support. The work you are doing on a daily basis is saving lives and will help build safe and thriving communities all our residents deserve. In closing, I want to express my sincere gratitude for your commitment and dedication to this work. I know how hard it is. My administration, the Cook County Board of Commissioners, and the Justice Advisory Council will offer our ongoing support to you as recipients of the county's gun violence prevention and reduction grants. You can count on us as a partner in the work ahead. We appreciate you being here today as we celebrate this milestone, and we're grateful for all your efforts to build safe, equitable, and thriving Cook County communities. Thank you. I'm going to ask Commissioner Brandon Johnson to join us next, and if you would be good enough, Commissioners, to introduce the person who follows you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, my name is Brandon Johnson. I'm the proud Commissioner of the 1st District of Cook County, right here where we stand today. So welcome to the west side of Chicago. How about that? So let me just say this, President Preckwinkle has already set the ground rules, and she said we need to limit our applause. But if you could just indulge me for a second, you all. This is one of the most exciting moments that we've experienced in Chicago in a very long time. The city of Chicago is being revived, and it's being revived today. There are people across Cook County that want to see a better way. And today we are setting the course for a new direction where violence prevention is not limited to the scope of the vestiges of the past, where segregation and brutalization has been the norm. See, raising a family in the city of Chicago has become quite arduous. In fact, my wife and I were raising our family just a few blocks from here. And every single day we wake up and we go to bed thinking, about the tragedies that continue to happen. And the biggest tragedy that happens in the city of Chicago, quite frankly, as Madam President has already articulated, the biggest act of violence has been the loss that we've experienced because of disinvestment. The fact that these communities have been starved of resources for generations, whether it be grocery stores, schools, affordable housing, access to transportation, that is the greatest act of violence. And today we're transforming that, as Madam President has already indicated, by offering up the most historical investment in saving people's lives. That's a revival. That's what's coming to Chicago. That's what's here today. I want to thank my colleagues in the Justice Advisory Council and all of the community organizations and stakeholders that are committed to our lives. But I would be remiss if I didn't take the moment to acknowledge the land that we're on today. And so if you can just bear with me. We are on the lands of the Council of the Three Fires, Ojibwa, Ottawa, Potawatomi, as well as Miami, Ho-Chunk, Sauk, Meskwaki. All of these are the people groups of which land we stand on today. And as a land management agency, we acknowledge that we have played a role in shaping the histories of the local Native Americans by acquiring this land. But we also recognize that we share and celebrate their contribution to this land. So with that, could we acknowledge the tribes that made this possible? In closing, I'm reminded of a very dynamic moment. Since Dennis Deere is here, and you all know that Commissioner Deere has like 3 titles. Like he's a reverend, he's a doctor, he's a commissioner. But I'm reminded of a particular moment where all of the politicians, business leaders, attorneys, community organizations came together and they wanted to know something from Jesus. They wanted to know who gave the most, because there were billionaires that were distributing into the treasury. And so they said to Jesus, who gave the most? And he looked at a woman who was a widow and she was poor. And he said that the billionaires gave to the treasury the amount that they had. The woman with the mite gave all that she had. That's the moment that we are in today, sisters and brothers. That if we're going to transform our neighborhoods across this city, we have to be committed to giving all that we have. And today's historic investment speaks to that. When little boys and little girls who ride their bikes in the city of Chicago, and too often those bike rides end in tragedy, we're not giving all we have. When people across America are in desperate need for opportunities for jobs and they can't find employment that pays a livable wage, we're not giving all we have. When neighborhoods are being starved and people are being forced and pushed out because of gentrification or because of the instability economically, and that individuals who cannot afford to live in these very communities are constantly being told that there's not enough, we're not giving all that we have, sisters and brothers. And so today, though, Cook County government is setting a model, not just for the city of Chicago, but for the rest of the country, that in what we have, we give it all. We give it all. I'm happy that I've struggled alongside some very dynamic commissioners. You're going to hear from them. Some of them are still my friends. Listen, when you come from a big family, sometimes you throw blows a little bit, and we might argue a little bit, but I say it this way. As long as Thanksgiving dinner is not at my house and there's sweet potatoes and greens, we don't have to fight. And so today, I'm happy to be joined by individuals that have struggled with me along this journey to make sure that we're not just simply doing what people have done in the past, where we have $1 million blocks of individuals who've been invested in through incarceration, but not $1 million blocks where individuals have been invested in for their education. And one of those individuals that have stood alongside me, consider him to be a big brother, Cook County Commissioner Frank Aguilar.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to thank President Tony Preckwinkle and Commissioner Brandon Johnson for inviting me here today. And I would also like to thank each and every one of you, local organizations, stakeholders, and community members who have fought so hard and tirelessly for change. I believe these grants will deliver and support relief for most impacted communities. Gun violence is not acceptable anywhere. It can never be accepted as a norm. We cannot accept children growing without parents due to gun violence. We cannot accept a world where parents lose their children because of senseless shootings. These grants will work very hard. This grant will work hard, and our elected officials and stakeholders dedicated to the frontline organizations, clergy, families, and a promise to never accept gun violence as a normal. Our residents who are nearest to gun violence must know that we have not forgotten you. We, as elected officials, must do everything we can, just like Commissioner Johnson said, do everything we can and give it all to make the streets safer and give opportunities to our communities. We must continue to build trust so these services are utilized by residents, especially those who are most vulnerable. But this is not the end. We have much more work to do. This is just a step that will provide the organizations with the resources and tools that you need to successfully combat this gun violence. I applaud my colleagues on the board and applaud President Tony Preckwinkle for leadership, for their tireless efforts to bring peace in every corner of our county. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Now, I'd like to bring my colleague, Commissioner Anaya.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am extremely excited to be here with you today because I have been part of Cook County government for nearly 11 years. As a commissioner, a little over 3, about to hit 4 years. But I have never seen so much dedication into our communities. And for that, I want to make sure that we applaud the effort and what we're celebrating today. So let's give it a round of applause. It's funny that we stand here today because just yesterday I was talking to our wonderful host, Commissioner Johnson, about some of the activities I did when I was in high school. I went to a wonderful high school, Wendell and Brooks College Prep in the Pullman neighborhood, and was given so many opportunities. And the school was so dedicated to ensure that, I was bussed out. I was explaining, some of the anecdotes about coming to play tennis and having all of these great opportunities. And after that, I kind of thought about that, and on my way over here, I kept thinking about that, right? The fact that I was so blessed to be able to be surrounded by individuals, and at the time, an institution that really cared. But we continue to see disinvestment into our schools, into our programming, and I can't wrap my head around the fact that that may not be the case now for a lot of our high school and middle school children. And I think it is our responsibility as government to take lead. It is our responsibility to ensure that the young people that come after us, the ones that we're leaving this wonderful gem of Chicago to, that they are prepared and that they have the resources and that they are continuously secured to feel that they can do everything that they can or that they wish to become. And I think that this is why the $75 million is a huge deal, not because it's a huge amount, but it's because of the possibilities that we're creating. And that speaks volumes. But I want to just, again, kind of have us think about the fact that there are so many individuals here. And you don't represent the only individuals in the organization that are doing something, which means that out of the 68 organizations that will be receiving funding from the $75 million, we are creating thousands of opportunities even within our organizations. We're, 'cause We're creating waves of mentors, waves of other opportunities and examples in our communities, the communities that have seen devastation, not just the past 2 years, but historically. And I think that this is what we need to celebrate. We need to thank you for the organizations that actually applied, that actually really thought, we've been doing the work. We have been doing everything for 10, 20, even some organizations, 50 years. We know how it's done. We have saved lives before, and we're going to continue to save lives. We're going to continue to bring hope into the neighborhoods that have seen in any other way the doors closed. So I want to thank you, and I want to make sure that you continue to know that you have that power, that you are creating these amazing, amazing individuals and these opportunities that will transcend not only the next 3 years that you'll be receiving the funding, but even beyond that. So thank you so much for being here, for really dedicating and ensuring that along the way we're gonna make this wonderful change, and we're gonna continue to put our money where our mouth is. And everybody that knows me, I always have to translate, so I'll try to be very brief in Spanish, just for those that are tuning in Spanish. Hola, me llamo Alma Anaya, soy comisionada del 7º Distrito y hoy estoy muy orgullosa de estar hoy día aquí con todos ustedes porque es un día grande, es un día de que estamos invirtiendo $75 millones en nuestras comunidades, en más de 68 organizaciones que han hecho un cambio transformativo para prevenir violencia y crear oportunidades para nuestros jóvenes. Es un día de celebrar, pero sabemos que es un día que también vamos a fijarnos en años que siguen, porque estamos cambiando vidas de personas jóvenes, de niños que han visto que sus escuelas no tienen recursos y no tienen lo necesario. Y hoy por eso estoy tan orgullosa de ser parte del condado de Cook, porque estamos poniendo nuestro dinero en lo que estamos diciendo que vamos a hacer, en nuestra misión, que es salvar vidas y crear oportunidades para nuestros jóvenes, para que no haya violencia en el futuro. Muchísimas gracias. I would now like to, thank you. I would now like to ask a great colleague of mine, Commissioner Deere, to come up and give some remarks.
Good morning. Good morning. I always start by saying God is good and all the time. It's a lot of you all here today. Today is a historic day. Not in the history of Cook County have we ever had $75 million that we were giving to gun violence. 2 years ago, Cook County unanimously declared gun violence a public health crisis. Not only did we do that, we took it to NACO, the National Association of County Officials, and declared gun violence a public health crisis in the United States. Amen. Why is that significant? Because this is a problem. And it's a problem that has not only permeated underserved communities, but there is no community that gun violence has not taken itself to. So we are fighting. In the movie Spider-Man, Peter Parker, grandfather said to him, with great power comes great what? Say it again. With great power comes great responsibility. Socrates said if you always do what you've always done, you're going to always get what you've always got. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We have seen the same song sung for, at least in my mind, 20, 30 years about decreasing violence. We have an opportunity here. We have people that are receiving money and 68 organizations all at once. So there is a challenge here. No longer will we do what we've always done, where organizations work in silos and not talk to each other about how they are doing about getting rid of violence. See, I grew up in the hood, and I'm proud of it. I saw my first murder at 10 years old. My family, my cousin, was killed at 19 when I was just 15 years old. And my promise was to myself and my family that I was going to grow up, I was going to go to college, get what society said it I needed to succeed, come back and help my community. And that's exactly what I've done. But it was organizations like those sitting around me right now that helped me fulfill that. So I challenge you, do what you do that is best. Do the work. Talk to each other. Don't let this be the last time you come together. You should come together quarterly and make it happen. Why? Because the kids that were just like me are dependent on you. Cook County has provided the resource. And you know, I'm going to end with a dearism. In order for you to get something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. And guess what? We're doing that here today. We ask you to do that as you get this money, and you got 3 years. And we'll be coming to visit to see how things are going. And know that we support you 110%. And in 3 years, we want to tell the nation that Cook County reduced gun violence. God bless you all. Oh, my bad. I am introducing a colleague of mine, a great colleague, Commissioner Bridget Degnen, who will come and share some words. Commissioner Degnen.
Thank you. It's always really difficult to follow Commissioner Deere. He has a very heartfelt story. So I am Commissioner Bridget Degnen. I am a commissioner elected to the 12th District of Chicago, which covers parts of the north and northwest side of the city of Chicago. So today I would like to thank you all for being here, but especially thank President Preckwinkle and my colleagues to celebrate the investments that the county is making to combat gun violence in our communities through our Safe and Thriving Communities ARPA funding. For too long, I think many in our county have become numb to gun violence. And the reality is that gun violence shouldn't be happening anywhere, but least of all in the most disinvested communities where it is already difficult enough to survive daily. So the $75 million in funding from the American Rescue Plan Act will help communities most impacted by gun violence by, in part, addressing the root causes of gun violence. We all know that this is a significant investment in this community and our communities in Cook County, and will help make all communities safer for all. $75 million is a lot of money, we all know that. But it is money that will save lives. And it's not just gonna save lives of the person that was the victim of gun violence, but on the other side of the equation, for the person that picked up that gun and created that violence, that person is a victim as well. That person suffered trauma in their communities, and that is the reason why they picked up that gun in the first place. So it's not just the person who was shot, it's the person who picked up that gun. It will save both of those lives on both sides of that equation. And $75 million is a lot, but the lives of our daughters and our sons, those lives are priceless. So I would like to highlight and thank all the organizations that are receiving this funding, but in particular, Metropolitan Family Services and Revolution Workshop, which work directly in my district in District 12. And I humbly thank all of these organizations and all of you here today that are doing this work in earnest. Gun violence doesn't start or stop at the borders of any one of our county districts. And as our safety and our successes are truly bound to one another. So thank you all for being here today. I would like to next recognize Avik Das. He's the director of our Justice Advisory Council for some remarks. Thank you.
All right. Good morning. So I'm Avik Das, director of the Justice Advisory Council. And, I thought that doing this grant thing was going to be hard, but following the speakers, that's really hard. President, commissioners, thank you. Thank you for warming this space. That you guys have filled this space with such energy and hope, I'm very grateful. And I know I'm up here with my Justice Advisory shirt, and my colleagues are in similar shirts, and they're here with me also celebrating, and I'm pleased to belong to them. Excellent. A lot of eyes on this wonderful swag. Thank you. So I'm going to be offering some further remarks on this grant initiative. I'm going to recognize the organizations in attendance, and then really culminating events is to hear our final two speakers. So we're here today to celebrate Cook County's historic investment of $75 million in gun violence prevention and reduction programming. This really means we are here today to celebrate the hard work and dedication of the 68 organizations funded with these dollars over the next 3 years. This is vital work that ultimately deepens our commitment to the safety and well-being of our most vulnerable residents and communities. So many years of experience and wisdom is represented in this room. The talent, the compassion, the perseverance. It's a real privilege to be in this space. This is an urgent fellowship for our county. Gathering in strength in the face of crisis and challenge, we stand together, committed to bring about triumph, one life at a time, in the face of what is often tragic and heartbreaking. As we embark today on what we expect to be at least a 3-year journey together through this grant award, I want to recognize the deep bench of community-based expertise in the room, focused on helping and healing people touched by violence, and through their success, building safe and thriving communities. We are rooting for you. The work you have done and the work you will do will change the lives of many individuals, and those positive impacts will ripple across families and neighborhoods. We are also confident that the positive impact of your work will be amplified by other unprecedented, substantial investments made by the city, state, and philanthropy. Indeed, we are proud to be in active collaboration with those other funders to build as robust an array of services as possible, closest to the lives most impacted by gun violence. We want to ensure that organizations like yours have the capacity to build on their successful and innovative programs and reach more residents in need. This grant initiative supports programs serving community areas in the city of Chicago and suburban Cook County. They have experienced the highest concentrations of fatal and non-fatal shootings, and through this funding, about 9 programs are serving our south suburbs, 6 are serving the west suburbs, while another is providing services across suburban communities. 20 programs are serving communities in Chicago's south side. 17 programs, including 2 that we will hear about shortly, are serving the city's west side. 3 programs provide services across the city or are focused on north side communities. These programs are not one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter. They leverage evidence-informed and community-affirmed strategies for violence prevention that largely fall into 5 categories, and I'm going to name them: street outreach and intervention, case management, hospital-based services, services for victims, prevention and support services. So I'm going to briefly touch on each of these strategies and ask organizations for a little interaction with programs that are incorporating these strategies, if you're going to be able to raise your hand, and we're going to join and applaud you. So if your organization provides street outreach and intervention services in which members of your team, for example, are working on the ground to build trusting relationships, mediate conflicts, help make referrals to supportive services, please raise your hand. Awesome. If your organization offers case management services in which you maintain a responsive connection with your clients, offering individualized services and supports, please raise your hand. If your organization offers hospital-based programming or victim services such as crisis intervention, counseling and therapy to victims and their families, please raise your hand. If your organization provides prevention and support services such as employment or workforce development programs, education support, youth development programs, mental health and substance abuse services, please raise your hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a diverse array of programs, with each organization bringing both common and unique elements. We have organizations such as BUILD, Inner City Muslim Action Network, the Firehouse Community Arts Center, whose various street outreach methods allow them to forge authentic connections with some of our most at-risk and vulnerable residents. Programming from organizations like Revolution Workshop and Manufacturing Renaissance, they provide not only supportive services for participants, but new in-demand job skills like carpentry and manufacturing. Organizations such as Story Catchers, Theater, Firebird Community Arts, they create wonderful works of life through wonderful works of art. They harness the power of art making in various media to help young people process and heal from trauma. All these programs allow those who have been impacted by gun violence in their homes and communities to move past their worst days, break cycles of trauma that have claimed and damaged far too many. With every relationship established through these programs, people are humanized. Healing and hope has room to grow. I only offer just a few examples here to illustrate the exceptional work being done by all the organizations funded through this initiative. We are incredibly proud to be partnering with all of you and supporting the vital, life-changing work that you do. We want to promote solidarity and collaboration across all these programs so we can build on your success and continue to grow the continuum of services available. Indeed, there is room for growth. As big of an investment $75 million is, we are acutely aware that it is still not enough to support all the good work being done. There were many truly compelling program proposals received in response to this grant initiative. 190 grant applications were submitted, representing nearly 400 organizations, with a total request of almost $500 million. This level of participation, weighed against the level of funding available, made the review process extremely selective. Going from 400 organizations to 68 and $500 million to $75 million was not easy, and it is disappointing to not be able to fund all the programs that we wished we could. But ultimately, we view the strong response to this grant initiative as a beacon of hope and a call for further action in such challenging times. We are committed to develop and offer other funding opportunities, and we are grateful to know so many organizations in Cook County are working to address violence, and they're interested in working with us. As for the organizations gathered today, we see this group as more than just a list of grant recipients. Please consider yourselves a cohort, a fellowship that can celebrate and share successes, offer mutual guidance and support when challenges arise. We want to support your connections to each other, quarterly perhaps, and to us throughout this grant period and beyond. We want to uplift the work of each of your organizations and its impact on real lives. We want to regularly make space like today for shared learning and inspiration. Thus, it is my privilege to introduce our next two speakers who will speak to some of the impactful work taking place in the Austin community area. First, we're going to hear from Kiwana Bell, Chief Development Officer at Westside Health Authority. They'll speak to their holistic, community-centered work that we are also supporting through this initiative. And then I will return to the podium and introduce the final speaker. Kiwana?
Good morning, everybody. I feel so lucky to be chosen, and I just want to congratulate all of our other grantees and welcome everybody to Austin and some of my other Austin community group members who we are all working together in many ways to combat this issue that we have with violence. As mentioned, my name is Kiwana Bell. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Westside Health Authority, where we believe community people are the authority on what needs to happen in their own community. For 30 years, we have been working to quell violence in our communities through different programming with our reentry population, with our youth, and doing workforce development projects. In 2016, there were like 800 murders in the city of Chicago, and we had over 80 murders here in Austin. And at that time, everyone was scrambling, trying to figure out what to happen, what should happen, and everyone was talking about programming for youth and high-risk youth. And so what we did is, because we believe the community is the authority, we did a community survey, and we surveyed over 1,000 residents across Austin and asked them what do they believe were the causes of violence. And they overwhelmingly came back with 4 responses. 1 being youth isolation and disconnectedness. 2 being the vacant and abandoned housing that exists on some of these blocks where a lot of our young people are, or people in general are dealing drugs and doing gang activities. 3 were broken community and police relationships and non-trust for police. We had even older people, talking about how police were not to be trusted, which was surprising to us. And the 4th thing was people largely talked about the lack of connection with their neighbors. Many people talked about how they went out of the community for everything and how they've lived on the block for 20 years and don't know any of their neighbors. And that when they were growing up, they had opportunities to be with their neighbors and to have support from their neighbors, and that doesn't exist anymore. And so we know we got a lot of blocks with single moms. We know we got blocks with isolated seniors and all these other initiatives. And so what people said is that we need to come together to address this. And so in 2016, we began an initiative called the Good Neighbor Campaign. And the Good Neighbor Campaign doesn't seem to put out darkness, but we just go out and we shine our lights. And we try to connect with like-minded residents who have the same type of desire to change their community. And we try to give them a platform in which they can immediately affect. And many times that's their own block, because that's an environment that you have some direct control over and that you can do something for specific families. And most times, a lot of people want to do something, but they just don't know what to do. And they need to be connected to a hub of some sort. And so we started this Good Neighbor campaign, and we went out with our orange t-shirts on. And we started doing block canvassing on some of our toughest blocks and engaging neighbors who are tired of the same things that everybody, the good people, to come out to fight the darkness. And that was in 2016. And since that time, we have grown. We have over 5,000 people who've connected with the Good Neighbor campaign. We have a network of good neighbors throughout Austin. We're very thankful for this grant, because this grant allows us now to connect on a hyper-local way. So we are able to affect people on their blocks. We are able to pay stipends to citizen leaders who can engage with residents that are in their church, or engage with young people that are on their block, or even in their own families, and point them to resources and community, because a lot of times resources may exist, but people don't know where they are. So, by this strategy allows us to just provide more good neighbors in more areas to provide resources to our young people and some of our more vulnerable residents, including single moms and who have young sons who are not able to completely keep up with them. So I'm very thankful for being a part of this group. I know that there are many ways that we can fight violence, but of the 1,000 murders that were spoken of, we know that 80+% happen in Black communities like ours. And so concentrated investment in communities that have the largest number of incidents is what I have seen it work. We've seen it work in other cities. And I'm very just thankful to Commissioner Johnson, who's been to many of our Good Neighbor stakeholder meetings. They happen every week where people come together and strategize as to where we should be, who we should reach out to, who are our most vulnerable people, and how we can support them. So I'm very thankful, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you all today, and let's get it done.
That was great, Kiwana, thank you. Westside Health Authority, thank you. Again, we've got such an array of services and we want to be able to celebrate that. And so closing our remarks today, we're lucky to hear from Shanique Cross. Without giving too much away, in her bio, she shares her struggle with homelessness and notes having a household that was not mentally healthy. Her circumstances led her to work with another one of our sub-recipient organizations here on the West Side, Covenant House, Illinois. Shanique credits Covenant House with providing her a safe space to continue to grow and work on achieving her dreams, which includes being a musician and a model. Thank you, Shanique, for your generosity in sharing your experience with us. Shanique Cross.
Good morning. I'm extremely thrilled to be here with you all today. Hearing everyone speaking before me has been extremely touching. Being someone who is directly affected, I'm so happy to be here. This is amazing. I did not know this much hope exists. So, being here earlier, sorry. Thank you guys for the support, thank you. I'm amazed at the support in this room because you forget, especially when people have different ideals of support, like you guys talked about today, this is historic. These things have been going on for quite some time. So although I did not have a certain household, I don't even have any resentment. I can't have resentment towards anyone. I don't have that privilege because all I can do is thank them for the little bit they could give. They gave all they had. And sometimes you don't know that direction. You're giving what you're taught to give. So I don't hold any resentment. And you try not to. You try to continue not to, but you get angry with other people. You get real angry because why didn't someone help my community? Why? Why do I feel like I am seeing resources being planted in other areas, but yet I feel as though I am not being fulfilled? My community has been impoverished, and it's hard to continue and not do what? Be violent. It's hard to not, when you're doing the right thing and you have to live in a certain environment where you are trying to go somewhere new, but you're also being pulled back from where you are because you don't always have a lot of friends in those environments because everyone is trying to pull each other down, just crabs in a barrel. And it gets hard because you feel so much empathy for them because you're in the same situation. You're like, I know what you're feeling. I got integrity. I got dignity. I can't move like that. And when you just keep going no matter what, with that integrity and that dignity, and no matter what people say, because it's hard out here, being someone who's affected, you're directly connected with people who might try to sway you in these streets, who might try to tell you this or that. And being able to be like, you know what, I don't know what it is, but somebody gonna help me. I'ma help me. I'ma go help me. Thank you, guys. It's really, having that willpower has gotten me so far, because I got too much willpower to do certain things, like, sorry. But having the support, thank you so much to Covenant. I will always say, thank you, Covenant. I will yell that everywhere I go. They have helped me tremendously, not just with finances. Let's be honest, some parents in the hood, they have finances, but they might lack emotional support. They might not have the mental capacity to understand certain cognitive things. And these things are things that we should be showing our communities, because it's not just on people's households. It is on everyone to hold each other accountable and to try to continue to grow. And that's the main thing I always love about Covenant, is because Covenant does not, it's not like other shelters out there. They don't care. Maybe they do, okay. But it's not the same. They don't care about getting involved in the conflict. They're also not gonna just brush you off about it. No, they're gonna tell you, maybe you shouldn't have said that. No, this is what you would have wanted to portray. And just having that kind of support, having someone to listen, all of the staff there is way more than just staff or just money or just a source, or, it's nice to take a shower. Yes, it's nice to have those things, but someone who makes you feel like, here, take a shower, versus someone who's like, oh, you need a shower? Like, the fact that you even feel so bad to have to ask, and for someone to come with that welcoming energy, that is the main key. And so I want to say that I hope that, yes, money is great, cool, but I just hope that everybody remembers to give a little touch, because it's more than just about giving all you have financially, and that's kind of the bare minimum. Care is the bare minimum, actually, of love. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Covenant, and thank you guys for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shanique, for that personal testimony. Nick? A.D. Quigg, okay, A.D.
I'm wondering if maybe Madam President or Mr. Goss could speak to a couple specific grants and how meaningful they are for the individual organizations. Like $1 million could help us hire X number of people and or expand this program by this much.
All right, A.D. Quigg's question for you, Avik, is particular organizations that got grants and what they might be doing specifically with them that would impact folks.
Thank you. If I look, I'm trying to now pick certain highlighted organizations. And so when I'm picking this organization, it's not based on priority. It's really just top of mind right now. I'm thinking of Crushers Club. Crushers Club has young people in Inglewood engaged in positive programming, specifically athletic programming, specifically things like boxing, connecting with mentors, connecting with other opportunities that occupy folks that might otherwise be lost to other influences. And so what we're seeing is common thread in these organizations is creating different spaces, different opportunities for relationships that give persons an option to move beyond the things that are pressuring towards gun violence, that might be pressuring towards solving interpersonal conflicts with unresolved trauma that shows up in ways that can really harm and push people further away. So I'm highlighting Crushers Club as an example of engaging programming that wraps around a person and gives them a space to show up in their whole selves, but gives them a different way to express themselves, consider how they're going to deal with conflict. But if I go further from that space, that's a person connecting with another person, trying to say, this is how we'll occupy your day. There are other folks in this room that are providing art programs where these are experiences that push the boundary of what you would ordinarily be able to experience. I'm thinking of things like Story Catchers Theater, being able to express yourself and your story in a language that you might not have ever been able to access just at the block. And so you're given a space, a stage even, and you're giving guidance with the kind of love that Shanique was speaking about. Love is key. And they're giving that space to connect a new relationship and an opportunity for a person to say, I can be seen in a way that doesn't require me to cause harm, because now I can share and perhaps invite more folks to realize that there are other ways to express ourselves, to resolve our needs, to get the help we need based on the spaces created in this program. I realize that I'm speaking to all of you. I was trying to speak to the phone. Did you hear that? Yeah, okay.
How helpful it is to a person. So, President Preckwinkle or Mr. Dawson, you talk about how you're going to grade success for some of these programs.
I can't.
I heard you to say you're acknowledging that some of this success is immeasurable. And so how is it that we move towards that success? Did I reflect that back, right?
Yeah, how are you going to be measuring success and maybe grading what kinds of programs you'll be interested in continuing to fund after the ARP dollars run out?
Okay, thank you. All right, there's a very practical aspect of this. Real dollars are coming into spaces. Government is showing up in spaces to be able to support this work around gun violence and bringing it down. We are working with the state, the city, research organizations to be able to pull together a lot of metrics. But these metrics, these things that organizations are producing, that we engaged a participant, we delivered this many service hours, we are trying to do something pretty extraordinary. We're trying to build consistency in all the data reports. We're trying to help get the support of the academic institutions to evaluate how all these ARPA dollars at the state, county, and city level are being spent and invested in different programs so that we could tell the story of what is working metrics-wise in terms of the kinds of services, the kind of engagements that are showing up. I just described metrics, but I would like to acknowledge that in the question, success immeasurable, Shanique is the measured success. And so I would like to acknowledge to this room that we are trying to create a space where success is community-led, community-driven. It's a story told of the strengths, not where things just fell short, but where we went well and why we say we need to do more of that. So that's my qualitative and quantitative response to measurement of success.
Thank you. Thank you, Avik. 80 to...
Anything else? Yes, I've got one question for Commissioner Johnson.
All right.
Commissioner, you spoke a lot about the state of living in the city of Chicago. Your name has obviously been floated as a potential candidate for mayor of Chicago. What are your latest thoughts on a potential campaign in 2023?
So the question was related to the name Brandon Johnson being floated for mayor. I just want to make sure we're clear that question is not for President Preckwinkle, right? Okay. You're talking about me. Okay. All right. Look, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that there are a number of community organizations and leaders around this city that are obviously disappointed in the current administration. That her approach towards public safety in particular has been quite mediocre, and her investments have been petite at best. Clearly, folks do not believe that their candidate is in the race yet, and that's why I've been approached. Now, whether or not I decide to move forward with the campaign to lead this city, one thing I can say today is my commitment is doing what we've done today. And that's bringing people together. That's reviving this city. That's transforming it in a way in which people see themselves reflected in the work that has to be done collectively. The last thing that I'll say is this, unless you have another question, is that my father was a carpenter. That was his side hustle. And he would take me and my brother to help rehab these homes. We were not unionized, so he broke all child labor laws. And whenever he showed up, we showed up with a bunch of tools. You can't come to a rehab, and the city of Chicago is desperately in need of a rehab. You can't come to a rehab with just a flashlight, especially if it doesn't have batteries. It takes more than that. And so the consideration is going to be based on whether or not we can pull together a coalition like we're seeing today to bring about the type of transformation that, quite frankly, this city deserves, especially families like mine that are raising children in communities that have been disinvested in and need a little bit more hope.
That's all I've got. Thank you very much. All right, do we have anybody else on the line?
Hearing that there might be no more remarks or questions from the press, then we are actually transitioning into an opportunity for networking and getting to know each other. And so I guess as the press conference breaks down, we're going to complete some pictures up in front here. And then after that, we're going to go into our color groups. You're going to see Justice Advisory Council staff, and you have a color on your name tag, and you'll go to those color groups in the sides. We'll gather. There are snacks. Take that moment to refresh yourselves and get into those groups. It's just informal meeting and greeting, and we're going to take some pictures and go from there. So just transition. Thank you.